He feels that there's a good chance that we've been misled.
Believe me, I have no romantic attachments to the European Union and its institutions.
I want to see England, but England lost. I can never die, I'm Chuck Norris. The government of Boris, yeah.
There is a new politics in town. One that you cannot control.
The Art of Brexit, from Banksy and Mick Jagger to Billy Bragg, Paul McCartney and Jonathan Coe. Brexit has made fine fodder for the best of British artists. As Britain finally leaves the EU, we're today talking about the impact on the arts at home and beyond. I'm joined in the studio by best-selling writer of wonders such as A Year in the Merde, Talk to the Snail, and most recently, Elizabeth II, Queen of Laughs, Stephen Clarke. Hello, Stephen.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. Now, you too have taken inspiration from Brexit in your book Merde in Europe, but it was written before the referendum, so the end is slightly different to the end that we're living now. As a British artist who's lived in France for, what, 30 years?
25, yeah.
25. How do you feel now the day of Brexit has finally come?
Well, firstly, I don't think the day of Brexit has finally come because, you know, the negotiations are going to last forever. Secondly, I feel sorry because I think that the people back home in England have been misled and lied to, and they fell for it. They fell for the fake news. That's why I wrote my book, Merde in Europe. I went to investigate all the fake news that was being broadcast in the British press about Europe, you know, about how Brussels wants to force English lorry drivers to eat muesli. That was a real story in the press. Brussels wants to ban the bagpipes, you know, stop Scottish culture. That was a real story. It was nonsense. It was rubbish. But there were real stories in the British press and went on for years and years and years and worked. And now we're at supposed Brexit day and everyone's wondering, OK, so what happens now? Where are the benefits? Where's this, you know, what's this sudden independence we have?
Okay.
You know.
Well, let me ask you, is there anything culture-wise that's been created over the past few years that you've particularly enjoyed?
About Brexit?
About Brexit.
I've seen some stand-up comedians do some funny stuff about Brexit, yeah, and they have to be very careful because the country's so divided that if you've got an audience out there in a theatre, even in London, which is a very anti-Brexit city, you know the audience is going to be split. So the comedians have had to tread a very careful line down the middle, and they've all gone for this thing about everyone lied to us, you know.
OK, well, one of them is the British comedian James Ancaster. Here, let's have a listen to his brilliant teabag analogy for Brexit.
Sean's in the kitchen making me a peppermint tea in the morning of the EU referendum. He shouts through to me, James! Do you want the bag leaving in? Or taken out? Not today, Sean. Don't ask me that today. Too confusing. I don't know what to say. On the one hand, if you leave the tea bag in, then over time, the cup of tea as a whole will get stronger. And even though it appears as though the tea bag itself is getting weaker, it is now part of a strong cup of tea.
OK, well, Stephen, I always feel proud of Britain's culture. I always have anyway, past and present. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, James Bond. We're famous for so many things. Do you think Brexit could change our global image when it comes to culture?
Our global image, I don't know. It depends, I think, on producers, because my first book, A Year in the Merde, is like in production for a film, and the producers are from lots of different countries in Europe, and they are, I hope, going to get European money for this. Now, I don't know if the Brits can actually be involved anymore in this European production deal. That's just a very concrete, very selfish personal example. I'm slightly worried about that because they're literally going to cut contacts which have been flowing freely for almost 50 years, cultural contacts. Culture has been flowing, just like, you know, supermarket fruit has been flowing. Culture has been flowing freely around Europe, including in Britain, all sorts of festivals when European artists come to the UK and everything. And they're cutting these links and no one knows what's going to happen. So, I don't know. But, I mean, the good thing is a lot of good culture comes out of bad times. Dickens started writing because he was poor. The Sex Pistols, punk exploded because the young people were worried about the future. So maybe there's going to be a fantastic new punk revival.
Well, despite various musicians composing songs about Brexit, Britain's music scene stands to lose a lot. The industry contributes nearly €6 billion to the British economy, and with Brexit comes unforeseen challenges to musicians and their labels. Deeptika Laurent and Clovis Casali went to speak to some of these musicians in London.
In London's Soho neighbourhood, this indie radio station has been broadcasting directly online from its streetside studio for the past 6 years. Local rock band Field Music hails from Sunderland, the first district to vote for Brexit in 2016. Ahead of their latest album release, the group is worried about how Brexit will impact them.
I'm sure that it'll make it more difficult to tour in Europe. It's never been too difficult just to jump in the van, load the gear up, and go and do a show in Paris. And I'm not sure that anything that's put in place is really going to cater to, like the grassroots of music, where we exist. Fingers crossed to remain in the single market.
The British music industry contributed around €6 billion in 2018 to the economy, of which more than €3 billion came from exports. For Memphis Industries, which manages Field Music, Brexit brings unforeseen challenges, like possibly forking out thousands of euros in visas for their artists. And there's the issue of how to export records.
Our main warehouse is in the UK, and we're probably going to be changing that, because we won't want to be bringing the records into the UK to get them back out, because that's just going to be an absolute nightmare. We want people in France, people all across Europe, all across the world to be buying them. Nothing stops us doing that now in Europe. There's going to be barriers, and so I can't see there's an upside to it. I mean, is the upside that we're supposed to be more nurturing to British artists? That's what we do anyway.
UK Music is a lobby group that has been negotiating with the government since 2016 to defend the interests of the music sector.
Only 2% of the people who work in the music industry currently think that Brexit will have a positive impact. So ultimately, we'd like a sort of passporting arrangement to be put in place, so that if you're a creator, that you're able to kind of enter the Schengen area and tour without barriers. So we want to kind of cut down the costs and bureaucracy, allow for some kind of arrangement to be put in place to allow for kind of free flow. And that obviously needs to be reciprocal.
The world of classical music and venues like the Royal Opera House are also concerned about what Brexit may bring. British and European orchestras are intrinsically connected, and a restricted freedom of movement could impact musicians' abilities to go on tour. It could also impact business and the hundreds of thousands of visitors who come here each year.
So Brexit could mean a restriction on the movement of artists and potential trade barriers on cultural goods. According to the Arts Council England, cultural organisations receive more than €45 million a year from the EU. With Brexit, there'll be no access to EU funds. And there is, of course, the programme called the European Capital of Culture, something Britain has benefited from twice in Glasgow and Liverpool. Now, Stephen, you actually lived in Glasgow at the time. It totally transformed the city.
Oh, it was magic. Suddenly, theatres were opening, clubs were opening and everything. And I remember people literally being surprised because they were like, what's this croissant? What's a croissant? They hadn't, there were no cafes selling croissants, and suddenly there were all these cafes everywhere. I think that's probably why Scotland wants to stay in the European Union now, because, they might lose their croissant.
Well, cities like Dundee, Nottingham, Leeds and Milton Keynes were preparing bids to have the title of European Capital of Culture. Dr. Beatrice Garcia was head of a research programme into its legacy on cities. She found that the festival year saw nearly 10 million visitors to Liverpool, an increase of more than a third, and it generated more than £750 million for the economy. Media coverage of Liverpool's cultural attractions doubled. For the first time in decades, positive stories outweighed negative ones, focusing on social issues.
We have lost a real opportunity again to tell the story again for cities that often have not been appreciated sufficiently. And the loss also for Britain to keep influencing the rest of Europe. Because one thing we have to remember is not just how much the UK and those cities have gained out of having the title, but how much the title and the EU has gained out of the initiative coming out of the UK.
Well, apparently one city's loss could be another's gain, especially when it comes to the art market. Several galleries like White Cube and mega gallerist David Zwerner are opening spaces in Paris. We're joined in the studio now by Maya Mikkelston, a Paris-based curator and art advisor. Now, Maya, has uncertainty about Brexit seen Paris reclaim art market power from London?
London lost its place as the art market capital, and it became Paris takes the role. So that's the most important thing. But in general, in global art market, it doesn't lose its role because it's still very strong as an art market. Of course, Paris is a big winner of the Brexit because many galleries need their space in Europe, so they are opening in Paris.
Tell us, is the UK art market sector losing status in the EU and the world?
In Europe, of course, certainly, but in generally, no, it's very strong.
What's going to happen in the long term, do you think? Do you think Paris is going to take over from London, or do you think London can bounce back?
Paris will never take London's place. It's too strong. The difference is like too high. You can't compare these two cities. So Paris is winning a lot, but it will never take London's place in the art market.
Now, Stephen, nearly all of the creative industry, 96%, voted against Brexit. But I'd really like to end on a positive note. Have you got anything positive to say about what's going to happen next?
Have I got anything positive? Not much. I mean, as I said, the only thing you can hope is that things in Britain, I mean, I don't want to hope this, but things in Britain get so bad, there's a fantastic cultural movement of resistance and, you know, art often comes out of like resistance and unhappiness and everything. So maybe there'll be some absolutely fantastic, tragic poetry. It could be good. I
look forward to your book of tragic poetry. Stephen, your latest book is Elizabeth II, Queen of Laughs. Thank you for joining us, Maya. Thank you again. Now we're going to end with one of the most talked about TV series of late, starring Emma Thompson. Years and Years tells the fictional story of a future Britain all the way up to 2034, a Britain rocked by unstable political, economic and technological advances. If you think the present world is a scary place, this is a whole lot scarier. Remember our website, we're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
We will change forever. I vote for it.
Don't you dare.
It's a terrible, terrible world. But I want to see every second of it. This country has never been more magnificent. I look ahead and see glory. Are you with me? You don't mind, do you?
No.